Hello and welcome to the release notes review for version 6.2 and 6.2.1. So we'll get started on the 6.2.1 items. And the first one is an improvement to the way we can import items and assign them to parent items, so the child-parent relationships when importing. So it's important to note here that this is for modules that support parent-child relationships, so nested modules and modules that allow multiple parent items. So for regular single-level modules, this doesn't apply. So when you're importing from the list view, so the list view or the top-level tree view, depending on how you're viewing them in the admin, the items will generally be imported into that view that you're currently looking at or importing to. So basically saying here that if the parents column in the spreadsheet is empty, it's going to assign it to the view that you're currently in or that you've imported to. And likewise, if you've drilled down and you're looking at a folder, if you choose to import from there, the child items will be assigned to that parent. So it just makes that a bit more intuitive. The second point here, if the parents column is not present in the import file, then it will do similar thing to above. It will just assign them to the view that you're importing to. Or if they're existing items, if you're changing items with an import, then it won't touch the parent relationships, basically. If there's no parent URLs, no parent column assigned, then it won't change any parent relationship. So it won't break or override any existing parent structures that are set up. In point 3, some improved logic in how the import looks at the import file, the spreadsheet. So now apparently it doesn't matter the order that the items are in, so you don't necessarily need to have the parent item as one row and then all the child items underneath that. As long as the parent URL string is constructed properly and matches all the parents that it needs to match, then it doesn't matter where they are in the import. The import process will go and look for all those things and assign them as needed. So there's a bit more information on that here and a bit of an example on how those URLs might be constructed. And then item 4 here, when retrieving new URLs after the new parent's assignment. So I think basically what this is talking about is once the new child URL is constructed, because it has a new parent or parents added, then this is the logic that basically checks for that URL or does the validation, just check if that URL is not already present. And it depends on the setting you have in your settings, miscellaneous, disable autocomplete feature. So when you create an item, it can either autocomplete it with like a -1 or -2 if the URL was already present, so you don't get any URL conflicts, or you can have it set that it will just throw an error and say you can't have that URL. So depending on that setting that you have set up, it can do different things. So if you've got that disabled, then it's going to show an error and it will skip that item from the import. If you do have it enabled, it will go and look for the next number in the sequence and append that suffix number to the URL. So in a way, that's probably a safer option to have on if you're importing. Otherwise, it's just going to skip the item. Number 5, an item can have multiple parent items. So like I said before, if the module has allow multiple parents, then you can basically do a semicolon separated list of parents. So you can have one parent there, semicolon, and then another parent, and so on, for however many parent items you need to assign in the import file. Now again, when doing this, it runs various checks, which are all listed here. So it will throw errors in the case that the parent's not existing, or if the same rules applied in the previous steps that we looked at. And of course, this point here, just about the module needs to have allow multiple parents turned on in its settings. And the last point here, just saying that it'll also throw an error if the parent URL is the URL of the item itself, so you can't set an item to be its own parent. So what I'm sort of taking from this is that good improvements made to being able to assign those relationships, but you do need to be careful in making sure you construct those parent URLs correctly and get all that right in your import file. Otherwise, you could be faced with quite a few errors. Okay, the next item on the list here is some improvements to page caching on the server side. So this particular caching basically helps with a larger volume of traffic sort of hitting a page or your site in quick succession, like so as a sudden surge perhaps, or you've just got a lot of people viewing the same page. This is kind of like describe it maybe like just a short-term cache, so it's a 10-second cache for that page. So once the page loads, it'll go into cache for 10 seconds. Any subsequent views to that page will actually come from the server cache. So any liquid that was rendered, any server-side processing that was done, basically the server will just take that rendered page, put it in cache, and only serve that cache page. So it's going to be a lot quicker. But like I said, it's just a very short one, 10 seconds. And if anything, basically all the rules are listed here, which you can go through in more detail. But if you save anything in the admin, like a module item or page, it will reset the cache. So that will allow the page to do a proper refresh. And also there's some things about particularly with the shopping cart side of things, the e-commerce side of things, basically anything to do with the cart needs to disable that caching. So the cart always needs to refresh based on the user's interaction with it. So from what I read here, basically the caching probably wouldn't apply if the user has things in the cart. That's what I'm getting out of this. But in a lot of other cases, it looks like it's going to work quite well. And it goes into quite a lot of detail here about the exact rules and when the caching applies and when it doesn't, when it gets reset, all that sort of thing. So have a read through that if that's affecting you. And then the last one in 6.2.1 is FTP Sync time improvements. So I remember seeing quite a few partners having issues with FTP, being long delays when you're updating pages via FTP. So apparently there's some significant enhancements there have been made. Yeah, I'd be interested to see if all of those issues that everyone was having has been resolved. There may have still been some particular use cases that the team wasn't quite able to look at. So I hear. So if you are still experiencing delays, try and detail those as best you can and send to the team so that they can review that and try and fix those as well. And it looks like there was an issue with if you're trying to upload more than 100 files at once. So it looks like that might have been fixed as well. Okay, and then there's quite a number of bug fixes, which I won't go through in this video, but feel free to just read through those. Okay, 6.2. So the first feature on the list here is unassigned secure zone from front end. And this probably should be retitled to updating a contact record from the front end. So previously, we couldn't update contact records, CRM record, from the front end unless you're the actual logged in user for that CRM record. So now, let me just adjust my window here a bit. So there's a special admin role that's being created now. So if you go to your CRM contacts, you might start seeing this icon appear once you've changed this setting. So if we go to this user here, and click Edit, scrolling down, there's now a new field called Role, and we've got General and Admin User. So by default, everyone will be on General. But if you change a contact to Admin User, it basically gives them admin privileges when they log into the front end. So it's kind of like being an admin for the website, but it's an admin for the front end login. So it's separate to an admin user in the website in that sense, although it is still counted, I believe, to your admin user limit. You know, if you've got 3 admin users, then setting a CRM contact to an admin user will count as one of those. But it is separate to the admin users listed here. You can see I have no admin users listed here. So the CRM contact doesn't have to be an admin user here. This is a separate type of admin user. Basically, you're just giving a contact record an additional role that they can belong to. So basically, there's a new component called the member update form, and there's two styles that we can output this component in. You've got the source being the subscriptions, so you can output a subscription form, and this is secure zone subscriptions, so that if this admin role is logged into the front end, you can call this component against a particular user. So we're only editing one CRM record at a time. You can call it against a user's ID, and it will give you all the secure zones that are available in the system. Let me see if there's an example. Okay, so I'll log in to my front end. I've just got a sample set up here. Okay, so I'm going to log in as that contact record we're looking at. So what you can see here, and it's not formatting very well on, I think this particular site layout is messing with the checkboxes because it's customizing the checkboxes here, but basically you get a checkbox against the secure zone name, and I've got secure zones set up for zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. So you'll get a list of all the secure zones available on the site and checkboxes next to them. If they're ticked, then that's a zone that the user that you're looking at is subscribed to, and if it's unchecked, then they're not subscribed, but you can subscribe them or unsubscribe them and set their expiry dates as well, and then save the form, and that will actually update that user's secure zone subscriptions. And of course, the component can output data showing you all that information as well. So you can customize the layout or create your own layout or do anything else with that data. So the second thing we can do with this component is output, come down here, is output or change the source to info, and that will instead output just basically the update contact form. So the same type of update account information form that you might have in a user's secure zone. It's basically the same form, but it applies to the contact that you've put the ID for. So you'll get a form basically looking like this, with all the general CRM fields, even passwords, and we'll also output the CRM groups, advanced CRM groups, if you have advanced custom fields assigned to the CRM. Okay, and you can grab this component from the toolbox. So if we're on a page, example, in the components toolbox, under secure zones, we now have the update member form. So we always had the update account form, so that would be the form for the logged in user. But the update member form is for the logged in admin user. And when you click that, you can configure the component to what you need. So whichever form you want to output, set a collection variable, etc. And just an interesting note here that form can also use the JSON response parameter in the form action, so you can submit it using Ajax and get a JSON response back. So I'm pleased to see they implemented that for this form as well. And then there's a bit of detail of all the various conditions that need to be met for this form submission to work. So it needs to be logged in, needs to have the admin user role, etc. And the other thing which I don't think is noted in here, but the same rules apply for like the GDPR compliance, or the checkbox in the CRM record needs to allow the content to be output, or you override that setting in the site settings, miscellaneous, allow listing CRM contacts data. So if this isn't checked, or if it isn't checked per contact, then their information doesn't render on the front end, so you can't get their information to update. And the last little point on this is that it's the ability to set a CRM contact as an admin user role isn't available in like import and export it's only something that can be applied directly in the admin. One other thing with that, when you output the data from a member, whether it's through this new component or using the request.currentMember object, and you get all this sort of information about who they are and what secure zones they're subscribed to. The role field is included in that as well, so you can check with Liquid what role, if they're general role or admin user as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into this one a bit deeper. It's going to really help in those situations where you're creating like a mini front-end admin for your clients, where they can do functionality that's not necessarily available, or you can set it up nicer on the front end than how they manage it in the back end. So this will allow them to just directly edit customer information without having to jump back into the admin. Okay, next on the list, create mailing lists based on customer report. Probably should be subscribed to mailing lists based on customer report. So basically now we have some cool new ways to add records from your CRM to your synchronized MailChimp mailing lists, and in bulk as well. So I know previously there was a bit of an issue with getting CRM records pushed over to MailChimp in bulk. So if you're importing them and then you want to subscribe them. So this kind of allows a way of doing that via custom reports. So now under reports, custom reports, if we create a new report, you'll see this mailing list sync option at the bottom. So if you tick that on, you get a few options. Basically, you can choose the mailing list that you want to send these CRM contacts to or subscribe to. I don't have any on this particular test site, but that's okay. And again, you can select multiple lists. And then the update period in hours. So how many times basically you want to set this, set the system to go and run this report and do the actions. So I believe 0 is never. So if it's on 0, there won't be any system jobs that run. Basically, you would set it to 0 if you're just running the report once, and when you run the results, that's when it applies the synchronization. But you can set it up to keep running. So it can be like basically a live report. Maybe if you set it to every hour, it's going to run the report every hour and adjust your mailing list based on the report. So then we have the sync type. So there's 3 settings available, and the default's set to add all users from the report. So basically, whoever comes out in the report, it's going to subscribe them to the mailing list that you've selected if they're not already subscribed. Then we have the second option is adjust the mailing list users to be the same as the report. So if there are people already on the list that aren't in the report, they will actually be unsubscribed, and anyone who's on the report will be subscribed. And if there's any existing users in that, then they won't be touched. So it basically makes the mailing list in MailChimp the same as the report. And that means removing people if necessary. And then you can use the report to just bulk remove people. So remove mailing list users that are collected in the report. So this feature is going to be pretty powerful. I do kind of feel that it's missed the mark a little bit in the sense that mailing lists are kind of hard to work with. And so when I say mailing lists, we're talking about what MailChimp calls audiences now. And I think it's more best practice to have one audience, maybe 2 if you're quite a large organization, and do your segmentation with tags and groups. And that seems to be the trend with most email marketing systems from what I've seen. So having this based purely on mailing lists makes it, I think it's going to make it a bit hard, particularly for the free users of MailChimp, because you only have one list. So it's quite dangerous to start unsubscribing people from those lists. You don't really want to unsubscribe them as such. You probably just want to move them around in their segments, untagging, tagging, changing their group perhaps. So I'll probably be setting up a backlog request to see what enhancements can be made from this now. It's a fantastic start though. I mean, being able to do this in bulk, having it run periodically, that's just fantastic. So, really good functionality. I would just really love to see this maybe just be tags instead of mailing lists. I think that would have probably been more up to speed with email marketing's going. But, I'll put that up on the forum soon and we can discuss it from there. Okay, what else do we have in here? Okay, so that talks about the types that I just talked about. And then there's more detailed information about the logic for if you're setting that time period up and just how the logic works for those 3 settings that we applied. So I'll definitely recommend just getting your head around the logic, because I can see it could be quite dangerous if you don't sort of read that properly on what's going to happen, because it is unsubscribing people, and once you've run that report, it may well happen straight away. So yeah, you just got to make sure I'd probably even be inclined to not have this on at first, make sure your report's running exactly how you need it to do, and then turn on your synchronization, because I think from what I was told, once the report runs, it does the action at that same step. So yeah, I don't think there's any room to check first. Okay, the next feature here is native comments. So I was really surprised with this feature. One, because I didn't think it would be brought out so soon, but yeah, also the team have done a really good job on it. It works really, really well. Again, there are several things I can see to improve it, which I'll probably write a backlog on as well, but for the first draft, it's really cool. It looks really good. So I'll jump to a little demo page I have set up. So I've put commenting on the detail layout of a portfolio item here. Whoops. Do this item. So basically I've added the comment component to the bottom of this detail layout. I'll show you that in here. So this is for the portfolio module. Go to our layouts and detail view. So the commenting module's, I guess, intended to be put on a detail layout. That's how it works by default. But you could put it elsewhere. You can put it on any page as long as you're modifying the ID of the item that you're going to be commenting against, then really it can go anywhere. But basically at the end here, this is the comment module, and I've set up a collection on this and just outputting that in some pre-tags just so we can see the data that's being spat out with that as well. And I'll go through the various options in a minute. But basically this is what it looks like. We've got star ratings. And in this particular template, again, it's just messing with the input fields here. But normally they would highlight and turn yellow once you select them, which I thought was really nice. And basically you can comment and post. And of course, this is only for logged in users. So if you put this tag on a page and the user's not logged in, I think it just shows the comments. The form won't be visible. Once they log in, the form becomes visible and they can post. And then the raw output that just shows all the items. It keeps track of like the thread IDs. So this is a multi-threaded comment, so you can actually reply to other people's replies. And yeah, a whole bunch of other information there about the comments. So you can, of course, go in and customize all this too, create your own layouts for the commenting, your own form, totally customize all of it. So I think it's going to be really cool. It could be used for many things, even if you just want to use the rating portion of it. You don't want comments at all, or remove the ratings, etc. It's going to be quite flexible. Okay, so the first lot of points here is basically describing what the component should do. So I'll just read through these because I think it gives a good overview on what it actually does. So comments may be threaded. So that's what I said. You can actually reply to other people's reply, and they can be shown as a threaded comment view, or you can output them as just a flat view, which is what I have here at the moment. It says we should have the ability to natively emphasize the module item's author comments. So I'm pretty sure this wasn't actually included in this round. It's just been left in the release notes here, but I couldn't see how that's actually possible. But the idea is cool that, you know, if this was, say, a blog post and you have authors set up, that someone comments, and if the author of that post comes back and replies to that comment or makes a comment himself, that particular comment is, you know, given a class that we can then or highlighted in some way that signifies that's a reply from the actual author. So I couldn't see that working, and I don't see how it could work from the code because the author isn't associated with any logged in user, or even in the admin, authors aren't admin users. So I couldn't see the relationship there that could be formed from that. But I think it would be good too to have just any admin, if any admin replies or a staff, that their comments are highlighted, because obviously people want to watch for the actual answers if they post questions or something like that. But that's just one I might have to question later. Comments should have the ability to be added to any module item and products. Yep, and that's certainly the case. We just change the ID, and you can assign a comment to any module that you can get the ID for. Prevent liquid and HTML comments. So obviously for security and spam protection, it's going to strip out all HTML, strip out any liquid, or wrap raw tags around it. It will, though, allow links. So if someone actually formats a link, like with an A tag, like this, then it will actually keep that in, but it will add like the no-follow rules to the link. I don't see any actual users typing in a link like that. Only spammers are going to do that. So, and we've got the allow sending a rating with a comment. So the rating is out of 100, so 1 to 100. There's 5 stars by default, so I assume each item is 20, like goes up in 20, so 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So, if you're customizing this yourself, you could expand the star rating, you could have it more fine grain, or you could remove some, or you might make it a percentage slider or something like that. So I think that was a good choice, making it 1 to 100, not like 1 out of 5. Probably just works a bit better with if you're going to use it for different functionality. Then we've got the ability to delete and edit your own comments. So if you're logged in and this comment belongs to you, then you can edit it and delete it. Okay, and then we've got some controls in the admin for managing comments. So we'll jump into that now. If we go to content and comments, so we can see here, this is listing out all the comments that have been made. And we've got some really good filtering capabilities here. So we've got the usual column headings that we can sort by, which is great. But then we've also got this new filter here. So you can filter by a certain date range or a custom date range. We can filter by the status, so whether it's spam, pending, or approved. And we can filter by the module that the comments are relating to. So as we mentioned, you can put a comment component, or you can assign comments to any module. So yeah, you want to be able to easily list out just the comments for a particular module that you're looking at that particular time. So that's going to be really handy. And it looks like we can also import and export comments, which is interesting. And of course, we can come in as an admin, you can edit any of the comments, change their state. So I can approve this one, or we can delete them, of course, or set up a reply, which will then be posted to the site. And if you did post a user from the admin, it will post to the site under your admin name. And the other thing I need to check on, but I think spam, I'm not sure if that's like an automatic thing at this stage, whether there's any spam detection going on in the background, or if that's just something you can mark it as spam yourself. I'm not sure if like the system's going to learn what spam is at this point in time. I will have to double check that as well, but from what I could see, nothing was being marked as spam. But yeah, so for this part of it, this is like the moderation side of it. So we've also got settings. So for every single different module, you can control the moderation settings individually. So you can turn moderation on for new comments and turn moderation on for when the comment is edited. So basically that means that all comments will be set to a pending state and they won't actually go live to the site until you come in and approve them. But if you turn it off, then they'll just go live straight away. So just scroll down to my portfolio item. And you can also set a user to only be allowed to comment once. or unlimited times. And you can also assign a workflow or multiple workflows to a comment. Now, from my testing, the workflows only triggered on new items and not when they edit them. So I think that might be a bit of an issue, particularly if you've got moderation on, because if you've got moderation on, you need to know when a comment is being changed so that you can check it and then reapply the approval state. So if there's no workflow to go out, you won't know that that's happened. So that's probably a pretty important change that may need to be made for this one. And the other thing around that, particularly because this is a threaded commenting feature, you would anticipate that other users are going to comment on other users' comments. So in that respect, you would probably want those users to get notified that someone's commented on them. So maybe they're asking a question or whatnot. And that would encourage them to come back to the site, check out what's happened, and maybe comment again. In this first stage of comments, that's not in place, but that's something I'd really like to see brought through to. I think that would really make it much more powerful for getting user interaction on the site. So we talked about the moderation and the applying of workflows, and then it talks about the actual comments admin UI, which just went through before, which I think is really great. We've done a great job on that one. A bit more information about the stripping of HTML and protecting the site from any threats through the submission of comments, the type of data that's submitted, users recapture 3, so we don't really have to worry about the recapture on that. Okay, then it goes into a bit about why the form might error. So if you've got that setting on that they can only submit one comment, then obviously it'll throw that error. Also shows some examples of the form code, but you can see all this in your file manager. So these are under the CMS assets in the layouts folder, under comments, and also under comments threaded. So we've got 2 separate layout groups for if you're having the threaded view or you're having the flat view. So obviously the threaded view has to do a bit more looping to get that threaded structure. But yeah, you can go and have a look at how all that's set up. You can copy this and create your own layouts and modify that as needed. Of course, don't edit these layouts directly because these will get overridden with any system updates. But yeah, it's all here to be copied from, so you can see how that all works. And that just details a lot of that here as well. Shows you like the liquid that's output. So after all the commenting that I've noticed is done with Ajax, so it's all just happens without a page reload, but there is the form submission data is used for this form as well, so it outputs the same sort of style of data that you might be used to with regular forms, so you can work with that in the same sort of way. And there's a sort of a type of pagination, so I'll show you that now. If I jump back to my detail layout. We have a look at the component tag here. You can see we can set a limit which controls the top level number of comments. Well, if it's a flat view, it'll control the number of comments that you see. If it's threaded, it controls the number of top level comments. So the limit doesn't include any of the nested or threaded comments. So in this case, I've got my limit to 3. So when we're looking at the side here, we can see there's only the 3 comments. And then instead of there being a traditional pagination, because it's not really going to work in this case because all the items need to be listed out, we just have this show more option, which basically then just shows the next 3, and so on. Now, if it's in a threaded structure, we also have this sort of secondary limit, which is called the comment limit. And that will do basically the same thing, but within a thread. So if someone starts a reply and starts a thread, this limit will basically say, okay, only show 5 replies, and then you'll get that show more button within that thread. So you can have sort of this multiple pagination effect happening. So I'll just change this to the threaded view. That's common threads. Save that. And we'll see how this changes. Okay, so we can see there's still just the 3 top-level comments, and now we have this reply button. So the user can click reply and post a reply to that comment. If I show more, you can see that now this has a threaded or a reply posted against it. This one has several, and we can see that there should be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then there's a show more. And that's actually a show more for that threaded channel. So it showed more of the replies. There would have been an additional show more if there were more top-level comments, but I've reached the end of that. So yeah, it's all done quite well. Unfortunately, in this sort of the default implementation, the threading sort of only goes to 1 level deep. So if I reply to someone's reply, it doesn't sort of visually show that as nested again. It does seem to be tracking that information, because in the JSON output that we get, it records the thread ID and the parent ID. So it knows which thread it belongs to, and it knows which comment it was replied to. So the information's there. It probably just needs a bit of tweaking to get it to thread like that. But yeah, it's pretty cool how it works so far. Okay, so that goes through that information again, showing the layout examples here. So then this just talks about the flat view, having it in flat view mode, which is the default by look of it. Okay, and again, that's in the toolbox as well. So under components, and there's a new item just called comments, and you can choose threaded or flat, and set up all the information. So if you leave all the layouts empty, they will just be the default, and they'll use the default layouts. But yeah, as I said, you can go and create your own layout files and put the path and insert the path to those layouts. Okay, next on the list is for e-commerce, the ability to print and resend an invoice from the order, and also the shipping layouts. So if we go to the CRM, go to our orders, actually I'll use a different site here. Okay, under CRM orders, I'm going to jump into this first one. Okay, so from any of the tabs here, there's a print icon visible at the top. So there are 3 options. We can print the invoice, and this uses the email invoice template. So basically the same thing as you get from these buttons. If you're emailing the invoice off to the customer or sending it to yourself, basically print invoice uses the same layout, the same email, but basically these just open up the print dialog and allow you to print that layout. So now we have the packing slip and the packing label. So again, you can just hit that up, and you've got a layout here that you can, of course, customize and print out as needed. So you can access those layouts from e-commerce under settings and shipping layouts. And they're there for editing. And you can also get to them from the file manager and also FTP. So if you work by FTP, you can upload those as well. Okay, and that's basically everything I just discussed there. And then another list of bug fixes for the 6.2 release. So have a read through those, see if any of those are affecting your sites. Okay, so some good features there in that one, and hope you can put them to good use. Thank you.